my next guest would definitely be a worthy knight. He has to wear a good suit of armor because he is the greatest living Israeli. He is the journalist in Israel. He is the truth teller in Israel. And he is a regular now on our show, I'm proud to say. Please welcome Gideon Levy of Haaretz newspaper. Gideon, a happy new year to you. It hasn't started well in your part of the world.
Absolutely, and it's such a great honor to be with you, George, again.
Thank you, brother. The bombs are flying again. Bring us up to date on that one first, will you?
It was yesterday morning when I was jogging in the park at 6 o'clock in the morning, New Year, when I heard those two strange noises in the sky. It couldn't be thunders. And then I realized that those were rockets launched from Gaza, which fall in the sea. Another way of Gaza to remind its existence, another way of Gaza to remind its unbelievable humanitarian problem.
Yes, these two rockets landed in the sea. From the pictures I've seen, the Israeli retaliation hasn't landed in the sea.
No, the Israeli retaliation is always 100 times more cruel, more brutal, but I hope nobody was injured or killed. As far as I know, nobody was injured.
And has it stopped for the moment?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's turn then, Gideon, to the proximate reason why I asked you to come on the show this early in the new year. I was struck by, I don't know if you're aware, but I'm one of the few people on the left that spent time underground in apartheid South Africa. Incidentally, every house I slept in, every car I drove in, every dinner I ate was provided by Jewish members of the African National Congress. And the leading voice in civil society, in the latter part, certainly, of the apartheid regime, was Archbishop Desmond Tutu, as you know, passed away at a ripe old age. He was so revered that virtually every obituary of him was honeyed. But then I discovered that actually Tutu was being trashed by Israel's greatest supporters, and for all I know, inside Israel itself. What was that all about? How could people who regard themselves as civilized hate Archbishop Tutu, for God's sake?
Look, unfortunately, at least the official Israel is judging human beings only along one criteria. Do you support the Israeli occupation or you don't? If you do support the Israeli occupation, you are a friend of Israel, you are a friend of humanity, you are a hero. If you don't support the Israeli occupation, you are an anti-Semite, you are an enemy, you are a traitor. And no matter what are all your other projects, beliefs, thoughts, theories, nothing. It comes all about supporting or not supporting the occupation. And fortunately enough, Desmond Tutu, the late Desmond Tutu, did not support the Israeli occupation like any person of conscience in the world.
He described it as apartheid, in fact.
How else can you describe it?
A very good answer. A very good answer. Now, so there were no flags at half-mast for him in Israel. Certainly, Israel's loudest mouths in Britain, and I think in the United States, gave the memory of the late Archbishop a good going over. But something tells me history will view Tutu a little more kindly than it might view them, Gideon.
And not only history, I think that even today, who are they and who is Desmond Tutu? Who are they and who are those real freedom fighters? I mean, you can. I've been a few times to South Africa, and when you see what those people were struggling for, and how did they struggle for, and what did they achieve, those are really, this is exactly the kind of people that we lack here in Israel, exactly the kind of people that we lack in Israel, including, as you rightly so mentioned in your introduction, including members of the Jewish community in South Africa who were so brave and so devoted to even sacrifice many times even their lives or their health or their security and going to jail and being injured. Where are those figures in Israel? I wish we had even one. We don't even have one.
Well, so many of them I worked with, Max and Audrey, Coleman, Ronnie, Casserols, the great hero, Joe Slovo, the leader of the armed struggle, his wife murdered by apartheid in Mozambique, Ruth First, Albie Sachs, and so many others. I mean, I can't now, I don't have time to adumbrate them all. I must have met hundreds in my time underground in South Africa. Frankly, any white person that was in the struggle was overwhelmingly likely to be a Jewish member or supporter of the African National Congress. I pointed out at the Oxford Union, Jews don't have to be with apartheid. Some of the greatest Jews in modern history gave their lives struggling against apartheid.
But George, we have to admit that those were the tiny minorities. Because if you look today at the Jewish community in South Africa as a whole, I mean, you can't generalize. I'm sure there are some exceptions, but by and large, they are the greatest supporters of the Israeli occupation. And so are many others. They will condemn any comparison to apartheid, including, by the way, a few of them who were liberals there, who did fight with the ANC, and still they will, part of them, not all of them obviously, but part of them will say, how can you compare the Israeli occupation to South African apartheid? Some others, more courageous and more genuine, will say, you can't compare. The Israeli occupation is so much worse.
Yeah, well, Mandela's grandson has said so. I don't know if Tutu went that far, but so many people who've been able to see both forms of apartheid have made that very point. Finally, and I'm grateful for your time, as always, Gideon. How's the new fella doing? How could we tell there's a difference now in the Prime Minister's house? Any important differences at all?
Unfortunately not. Not in the issues that both of us, George and I, consider as crucial issues. You see, in the year of 2021, 319 Palestinians paid in their lives. In the same time, only 11 Israelis paid in their life. This proportion by itself tells you the whole story. And who is the terrorist, by the way? The terrorists are those 319, not the 11. So when you conclude a year, which was the most bloody year ever since 2014, we say over 300 Palestinians, most of them were not armed, most of them were either peasants or demonstrators who were struggling for their rights. When you conclude such a year, where exactly is the change? Where exactly is any kind of horizon for a new dawn? We are very far off it.
Gideon Levy, I don't know if you are a religious man. I am, and I pray to God that he preserves you, because we certainly need you there on our show, and indeed, more importantly, still writing for the Israeli public. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.